Sí, vamos a arrancar. ¿Cómo están? Bienvenidos a todos. Welcome everybody. We are so honored. This is our first stream live event here at Ciudad del Saber. We have with us our wonderful guest, Marcy. Marcy, come over. Marcy Herr from NYU Abu Dhabi. She's going to be with us presenting today about how to apply to US universities and also give them some valuable tips about the application. Hoy vamos a tener con nosotros a Marcy. Marcy es la representante de la Universidad de Nueva York en el campus de Abu Dhabi y nos va a hablar del proceso de aplicación a las universidades de Estados Unidos. Una sesión sumamente interesante que tenemos preparadas hoy, no solo para que puedas aplicar a estas maravillosas oportunidades que ella tiene para nosotros, sino para también entender el proceso de aplicación para otras universidades también. Así que, de verdad que gracias por estar aquí en persona en Ciudad del Saber. Es nuestro primer evento que hacemos de manera híbrida. Así que le queremos dar la bienvenida especialmente a los que nos están viendo por Zoom. Ahí vi que tenemos varios de Chiriquí, del área de Azuero también. Así que yo creo que esto va a ser una modalidad que va a seguir para el futuro, ¿no? Que no tengan que necesariamente venir hasta la terminal para poder aprender de estas maravillosas oportunidades que tenemos preparados para ustedes. Quiero saber si me escuchan, si los que están en la casa, si me escuchan bien. Me lo ponen por escrito en el chat y también si tienen cualquier pregunta, también la hacen por el chat. ¿Me escuchan bien? ¡Yay! Excelente. ¿Y ustedes aquí me escuchan bien? No, yo no los escucho, ¿eh? Sí. Oye, pero ¿no comieron? Ok, yo sé que están cansados porque vienen del colegio, pero no, de verdad que gracias por estar aquí, gracias a sus padres por traerlos. La verdad que tenemos que aprovechar estas oportunidades que tenemos preparadas para ustedes, así que vamos a seguir recibiendo invitados por Zoom. Hay unos que están consiguiendo estacionamiento, que todavía están llegando del colegio, pero vamos a arrancar, y vamos a arrancar para hablarles un poco de Education USA. ¿Quién sabe aquí qué es Education USA? Y los por el chat pueden escribir también. Bueno, para los que no saben, y no es su culpa que no saben qué es Education USA, porque por muchos años el programa estuvo cerrado en Panamá. Yo soy la representante de Education USA, empecé una semana antes de la pandemia. Así que sí, todo lo que hemos hecho lo hemos hecho virtual, así como ustedes todo lo que han logrado estos últimos 2 años también lo han hecho de manera virtual. Pero lo interesante es que vamos a tener próximamente un centro aquí mismo en la Ciudad del Saber y vamos a poder ir a vernos de manera presencial, así que estamos muy contentos por eso. Nuevamente, para los que no saben, no conocen, Education USA es una red global de asesores que apoyamos a estudiantes como ustedes a que tengan acceso a las universidades en Estados Unidos. No solo para licenciatura, maestría, sino también para pasantías, posgrados, aprender inglés, diferentes tipos de programas. También hemos estado recibiendo universidades de Estados Unidos acá en Panamá. Y como les comenté, iniciamos el año pasado, el 2020, antes de la pandemia, y es una red que está en más de 175 países, hay más de 300 centros, así que estamos contentos de que vamos a tener, hemos tenido una oficina ya estos 2 años, pero ya vamos a tener una oficina también física. Yo estoy muy orgullosa porque nosotros empezamos, no teníamos ni siquiera Instagram. Teníamos nomás una cuenta de Facebook. ¿Cuántos de ustedes ven Facebook? Ajá. Entonces, los estudiantes y mis pasantes me decían, pero es que nosotros no tenemos acceso a Facebook, así que no sabían qué estaba pasando. Así que abrimos la cuenta y ya tenemos orgánicamente más de 6,000 seguidores. Así que si no nos siguen todavía, les pido que por favor nos sigan porque de esa manera es que comunicamos mucha de nuestra información. Como les comenté, vamos a estar abriendo un nuevo centro en la plaza. No sé si han ido a la Michoacana a comer helado. Ok, enfrente. Enfrente de la Michoacana va a estar la plaza. Aquí está Sabrina. Sabrina es la encargada del centro, así que nos vamos a poder visitar, vamos a tener actividades culturales, películas, una cantidad de actividades, talleres, queremos tener muchas actividades, vamos a tener lentes de realidad aumentada. ¿A ustedes les gusta la tecnología? Para poder ver los campus en las universidades. O sea, vamos a tener acceso y si hay algo que les interesa pueden darle sugerencias a Sabrina porque todavía estamos armando la agenda de actividades, cosas bien chéveres que queremos hacer para ustedes y todas gratuitas. Chévere. Ok, entonces ¿qué hacemos? Education USA nuevamente los ayudamos en 5 pasos. La primera, investigar sus opciones. ¿Qué quiere decir investigar sus opciones? Es que hay tantas opciones. En mi época tú te graduabas y eras un médico, arquitecto, ingeniero, ¿no? Ahora hay millones de opciones. Pero también como hay tantas opciones de carrera, entonces estamos como que, ay, no estoy segura, todo me gusta. Entonces, y eso está bien, ¿no? Pero los ayudamos a definir eso. Los ayudamos también a escoger, porque representamos 4.600 universidades. Y hay universidades grandes, hay universidades chicas, hay universidades de 2 años, hay universidades de 4, hay universidades técnicas, hay universidades más que tienen océanos para ciencias biológicas, marinas, hay diferentes tipos de universidades. Y hay universidades como la NYU, por ejemplo, que tiene un campus en Abu Dhabi y una cantidad de oportunidades, por ejemplo, a nivel global. Entonces hay una universidad para todo tipo de personalidades, para todos tipos de interés, para todos tipos de gustos, así que nosotros lo que tratamos de hacer es brindarles a ustedes acceso a través de ferias universitarias y a través de diferentes eventos que puedan hablar con las diferentes universidades y decir, ok, esta me gusta, o esta tiene beca, esta tiene esto. También los ayudamos a financiar los estudios. Aquí sí tengo que aclarar que no necesariamente proveemos becas nosotros, más bien como los ayudamos a buscar opciones de financiamiento que puedan haber. Entonces regreso, investigar opciones. Por ejemplo, hemos hecho varios talleres de tecnología para apoyar, por ejemplo, en lo que es programación por Python. Nos reunimos con la comunidad Dojo, con una organización en Washington, por un programa que se llama Código como Segunda Lengua, y también tuvimos Career Showcases, donde trajimos a panameños, para que no digan que no, que nada, eso que hablaron de hidroinformática, por ejemplo, hacer GIS, lo que es tecnología, diferentes usos de tecnología para deportes, diferentes carreras nuevas que existen, para que ustedes vean lo que los panameños están haciendo en esas áreas. Y también hemos conectado virtualmente a becarios y todo esto está en nuestra página de Facebook, está en nuestro Instagram, así que cuando tengan tiempo pueden escuchar las grabaciones de todos estos diferentes talleres. Hemos hablado de becas deportivas, de acceso a diferentes oportunidades con exalumnos panameños. Y como les comenté, les traemos también ferias universitarias, y esto sí lo quiero traer a colación porque en mayo vamos a tener una feria virtual que hicimos el año pasado, nos fue muy bien, con 40 universidades, esta vez tenemos 50. En NYU, de hecho, fue una de las universidades que participó, muchas otras universidades de diferentes estados. Tuvimos a la canciller que dio unas palabras y a becarios en diferentes temas de ciencia, de música, de tecnología, que se conectaron desde sus dormitorios y nos contaron cómo ellos aplicaron a becas, cómo ellos aplicaron a diferentes oportunidades. Y fue una sesión muy buena. Entonces este año la queremos repetir, hablar de diferentes temas como OPT, que es algo que es acceso a que tengan la oportunidad con la visa de estudiante internacional, tienen acceso a trabajar en Estados Unidos por un tiempo después que se gradúan. Entonces eso se llama OPT. Vamos a tener en el STEAM Open House el 22 de mayo, así que ya lo pueden poner en la agenda, para que se vayan inscribiendo y le vayan diciendo a sus compañeros, a sus profesores, 50 universidades de Estados Unidos que van a estar para ustedes, sobre todo para carreras STEAM. Ciencia, ¿quién sabe qué es STEAM? Para ver, ¿Ciencia? No los escucho. ¿Sus compañeros lo quieren escuchar? ¿Ciencia? ¿Tecnología? Arts and Math. Yeah, Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts and Math. So, este es un evento que hacemos conjunto con Costa Rica y los queremos invitar entonces el próximo año. Como les comenté, no damos becas, pero sí promovemos becas existentes. A veces las becas las da la universidad, como es en el caso de NYU Abu Dhabi, Marcy nos va a hablar. También organismos como la OEA tienen becas, el gobierno de Estados Unidos tiene becas sobre todo para maestría, como las becas Fulbright, que ahorita están abiertas, así que si tienen algún primo o hermano que está buscando maestrías, hay becas intensivos en los Estados Unidos y están bienvenidos nuevamente. Para acceder a esto es en el Instagram de Education USA, PTY, right? Así que toda la información aquí está en el Instagram, en el Linktree, en el perfil. Y sin más, aquí está la información, el correo y la información del Instagram para que nos escriban. Vamos a ver, si tienen preguntas, los que nos están viendo en casa, la pueden escribir y con gusto les contestamos. Entonces, sin más, como comentamos, vamos a avanzar con un breve video acerca del Common App. Para eso vinimos hoy, para aprender más del Common App. Y Marcy Herr de NYU Abu Dhabi nos va entonces a guiar sobre este proceso.
We know applying to college can be confusing and even a bit stressful. So at NYU, we try to make it as easy as possible. Here's what you need to know. NYU uses the Common Application, which allows you to submit applications to multiple universities pretty efficiently. You can create your Common Application account anytime. It's a good idea to get started early so you have time to prepare. To apply to NYU, here are the basics. Head on over to commonapp.org and set up your account. You'll need to complete the Common App tab with information that will be sent to every college you apply to. Once you're logged in, go to the College Search tab to add NYU to your My Colleges list. You'll need to do that for every college you're interested in, but no matter which of our undergraduate divisions you're applying to, you only need to do that once for NYU. Now you can see our college-specific questions. Our application asks essentially two questions. Which division of the university are you applying to, and why NYU? We'll talk more about that later. We'll need official transcripts from any schools you attended, one teacher or instructor evaluation, and for first-year applicants, your Common Application School Report. NYU is test flexible, which means our testing policy is designed to help you put your best foot forward. Check out the standardized tests page on our website to choose the best option for you. Finally, certain majors have additional requirements, so check our website to make sure you've covered everything. Applicants to artistic programs are encouraged to submit their applications a month before our deadlines to get started on the audition or portfolio process. Now, you may need some advice, so here are the top 2 things we want applicants to know. First, know your deadlines. NYU offers 2 rounds of early decision for students who are sure that NYU is their first choice, and regular decision, which has a January 5th deadline. For transfer students, some of our majors only take new students for the fall, so check your department-specific website. Second point of advice? Do your research. NYU requires that you submit a short response to one question. Why NYU? This is one of the most important parts of the NYU application. We love it here, and we want to know why you will too. There's no right answer, but we want to know that you've done some research and found something that draws you to NYU that you couldn't find anywhere else. Once you press submit, our admissions counselors get to work looking for strong academic performance and a complete picture of who you are and what you would bring to our community. We know that's a lot to take in, but we're here to help. Please contact us if you have any questions throughout the process.
Hola a todos.
Gracias for being here. Y ahora vamos a continuar en inglés.
Recording in progress.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gladys, for that introduction to all of the services that Education USA has to offer. I think that was a really great start to our time together this afternoon, and I'm really just so proud of you for being here, for taking the time to come and learn and take advantage of the support that we are here to offer you. My name is Marcy, and I'm originally from Pennsylvania. I went to Penn State University, which we actually will talk about a little bit today. But now I live in Mexico City because it's my job to connect with students like yourselves throughout Latin America and the Caribbean to not only introduce you to NYU's campus in Abu Dhabi, but my favorite part, to support you with the application process. And so the content that we're going to be discussing, and I say discussing because I'll need some participation, is really, I think, valuable regardless of whether or not you're interested in NYU, because what we're going to go over is the process that so many universities in the United States use. And so I really encourage you to take notes, take pictures of the content, ask questions, and really engage as much as possible so that you can learn as much as possible. And that's both to all of you and to our friends online as well. Please do ask questions in the chat box, and we'll be sure to address those. So basically, what we're going to do today is start off by discussing the holistic admissions process. What does that mean? What are these universities looking for, and what is expected of applicants? Then the first chunk of our time, we'll talk about the common application specifically, and we're going to actually go together to the website so that I can show you step by step how to apply to US universities. And then the second half, we'll discuss that fun essay process, how to write a competitive application essay. So to begin, holistic admissions. A lot of universities in the United States, not just NYU, when we review applications, we're looking at the whole thing. Every component of that application is important to us, not just your grades. It's much more than that. We want to see that you've really challenged yourself based on what's available at your school. We're only assessing academics based on your school specifically. We also want to learn more about your character. The way that we can do that is through your letters of recommendation, through your essays. And then I would say the other component is extracurricular involvement. Student clubs, church, a family business, whatever you're putting your time into outside of the classroom is very valuable in your application. And the reason for that is because when we see those activities, we can learn more about you. For example, if you are an athlete, we're learning that you are hardworking, you're resilient, you're a team player. If you are spending all of your time at your family business, you're dedicated, again, hardworking. So we're trying to pull those character traits out of the things that you're involved in, which is why that's such a valuable part of the application process. And then the other aspect that I'll talk about momentarily is student fit. And we'll get to that. But before we do, I just want to show us this Venn diagram to get kind of a snapshot, to explain again that it really is all of those components that are taken into consideration. And so do everything that you can to keep this in mind and prepare for the process by making sure that you are a well-rounded applicant. And then the final component here is student fit. What do I mean by that? Of course, universities are not looking for one specific student profile that needs to check every single box exactly. No way, we want a diverse student body. However, depending on the school, there are some things that are taken into consideration as university values and priorities. For example, at NYU Abu Dhabi, we have over 115 nationalities within our student body of around 2,000, excuse me. And so because of that, we don't necessarily need students who are world travelers, but rather students who can, through their application, show us that they are open-minded, that diversity excites them, and that they would be very comfortable in an environment like NYU Abu Dhabi, where every aspect of their life they're constantly engaging with peers from all over the world. And so that's one example of student fit. Other characteristics that NYU Abu Dhabi specifically looks for, you can see listed here. Academic excellence. Did you get good grades and did you challenge yourself? Are you curious? Do you have broad interests? Maybe yes, maybe you are passionate about the sciences, but your hobby in all of your free time is dedicated to the arts. For a school like ours, where we're encouraging our students to learn about so many different subjects, that's very attractive to us. But again, if only you're dedicated to the sciences, that is for sure your passion, that's okay too. It's not a set necessary list of requirements that we're looking for, but rather just an idea of what that general student profile looks like. We want leaders, we want team players, students who are involved in their communities, among other things. But that's what we mean by student fit. The last thing I want to look at before we jump into the Common Application website itself is what is required through the application. And this will make more sense when we go online together. But from students, we will need your Common Application, your Common Application essay, and then an NYU-specific essay. From your school, we need 2 letters of recommendation, your high school transcript, the formal document telling us all of the courses that you have taken and your grades, the school profile, which is a document that schools have to show us how many students there are, what's your curriculum like, things like that. And then we need standardized test scores. But like you saw in the video, NYU is now test optional. And so if you choose not to take the SAT or ACT, for example, it's okay that you apply without those. And in that case, your academics would be assessed only based on your high school grades. And then finally, for US schools like NYU, we would require English language proficiency exam scores from something like Cambridge, IELTS, Duolingo, or TOEFL. All of those components are just like what I was explaining to you previously, taken into consideration in the application process. So what is the Common Application? A show of hands, do you know what the Common App is? Amazing. All right, so I'm glad you are here today. There was only one hand in the room. So just to start off, and I know we've already introduced it briefly, but the Common Application is a website that over 900 universities in the United States use in order for students to apply. That being said, in the US, there are over 4,000 universities. So not all of them use the Common Application. However, for those that do require the Common App, it makes your life a little bit easier, as you'll see. It just helps students to stay organized with deadlines, and you can apply to all of those universities, all over 900 if you choose to, with just one application. So it saves you some work as well. So with that, what I want to do is actually go to the website, and I encourage all of you to make an account this weekend. It is free, and you're able to do so to start to familiarize yourself even more with the Common Application. So before I actually enter my account on the website and we look at it together, I want to show you that here, before I've even logged in, there already are so many free resources available to me. For example, I can look at the essay questions that are used year after year. And of course, the second half of our time together today will focus on these essay questions. But even if you're not in your final year of school and you still have time before you're going to be applying, usually these essay questions remain the same. And so you can be thinking about them now and preparing now because they're right there available online. And the other resource I want to show you before we begin is the first-time applicant guide. If, when it comes time for you to use the Common App, you completely forget everything I talked about today, don't stress, because right here on the Common App website, there are step-by-step instructions for us of how to complete this, with videos and instructions for both you and your teachers. Also, of course, you have Ms. Gladys at Education USA and myself now available to support you as well. But within the Common App website, there's just so much information and so many resources for you. So with that, let's log into my account. I love this session because rather than explain the Common Application to you in my PowerPoint, I'm literally going to show you how to use it. And so if this doesn't make sense, if you have questions along the way, please do let me know. And I'm happy to review because my hope for this session is that all of you feel very comfortable using this awesome tool once we're finished together. So as you can see at the top of the web page, I'm already logged in to my own personal practice account. Before I build my Common Application to apply to universities, I have to start at the very beginning. I need to decide what universities I want to apply to. And the Common Application is helpful from the very start. So I'm going to go to the College Search tab. And as you can see, it tells us that 980 universities use the Common Application. That is far too many for us to apply to, and it's quite overwhelming. So I will begin by filtering that, and even though some other countries you can see listed here use the Common Application as well, they only have a couple, like 1 or 2 universities within that entire country that use the Common App. For example, China has 2 schools, Jamaica has 1. But the US makes up the majority of the schools on the Common App website. But it still is far too many, and so just to filter it a little bit more, let's look at universities in Arizona, California, and how about my home state of Pennsylvania, and let's see where that gets us. 134, still so many. But the great thing about this website is it's such a helpful starting point to do our research. So just beginning from the top, if we look at Albright College, it's going to show us the contact details of people in admissions offices like myself. That information is there for you to use. So when you have a question, definitely take advantage of that. Reach out to the schools that you're interested in. They're excited to hear from you. I can also see links to their website, a campus tour, their social media channels. This homepage shows me the application deadline, requirements, and I can see that as an international student, I can apply to Albright College for free. So after you do a bit more research, taking into consideration what's important to you in the schools you're thinking about applying to, perhaps you decide to add Albright College. When we are doing this research, I want you to think about what are your values? What is important to you in the short list of schools that you're going to be applying to? I don't know about you, but for me, the first thing that jumps to mind is cost of tuition and scholarship availability. The other things that I think are important to consider are distance from Panama, the size of the student body, the academic programs available. Obviously, these values will look different for all of us, but as you do your research, definitely keep those things in mind. In the interest of time, we're going to end our research here because I've already created for us a short list of schools. And again, the way that I did that is just by adding them to my own personal list. And my list is actually curated right here in the dashboard of my Common Application account. And this list is saved, so I could start my research now and be coming back to it and updating it as I narrow down the number of universities that I want to apply to. So now let's see, how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 schools. I think that's a good number. The great thing again about the Common Application is that right here I can see all of the deadlines and the requirements, which is going to look different for each university. And not only can I see this online, but there also is a Common app for your cell phone, so you can be tracking your application progress there as well. So now that we have our short list of 5 schools, we're going to jump to the Common App tab, where we're going to create our Common Application that we will use to apply to all 5 of those universities. A lot of the questions asked within this section are fairly self-explanatory. What is your name? Where are you from? When's your birthday? So we can move through it pretty quickly. But for those questions that are a little bit more complicated, I'll make sure to provide explanations so that you understand what we're asking of you. So just to start off with the profile section, I've already answered. So you can see I've listed my full formal name. If you were paying attention, you might remember that I introduced myself as Marcy, but here it says Martha. Surprise, that's actually my formal name, and it's important that we include our formal name on the Common Application so that when it is submitted to universities, it matches all of the documents from my high school and all of my test scores, like from the English language exams or from the SAT. So my full formal name is here. Put it like that because it makes more sense for the length of your name. That's fine too, just as long as it matches your ID. But as we go down, I've added my first name is actually Marcy. That's universities contact me via email or via phone, which we do frequently. I hope that they are calling me Marcy and not Martha, because the only person who calls me Martha is my grandmother, whose name is also Martha. But I want these schools to call me by Marcy. And my birthday. Again, if you have any questions as I move through this, please let me know. I added my address and my contact details. It's very important to include this information because sometimes we do have to reach out to you even before you're admitted to universities to say, hey, did you take the SAT? Because we are maybe waiting for your scores, but if not, that's okay too. We need to be in communication with you. The demographics section is where it becomes interesting because you'll notice that not all of these questions are required. So I have added that my legal sex is female because that question has a little red star. I can see that it is mandatory. But the other questions don't have that little red asterisks and they're optional. When questions within the Common Application are optional, they really are. It's not going to help you if you answer them or hurt you if you don't. So you'll see some of them I skipped, others I answered. But the last question is mandatory again. Have you completed this section? So I just checked the box, yes. Something else that you will notice throughout the Common Application is that some of these questions might seem a little bit strange as an international high school student. For example, were you involved in the US Armed Forces? The reason that we ask that is because since most of the universities that use the Common Application are based in the US, it's not uncommon for some of the students in the United States using this website to have been involved in the military before they decided to attend university. There are various parts of the Common Application that are very clearly designed for students in the United States. Don't let that intimidate you. We love having international applicants from all over the world, but it just might complicate your Common App a little bit as you go through these questions. It may not make sense, but have no fear. The next section is the language section. Make sure throughout your entire Common Application you are very truthful. So for example, as you already know, my Spanish isn't perfect, even though I live in Mexico. So I'm just going to say that I only am proficient in English. Something awesome about the Common Application, though, is as we move through it, the questions auto-populate and adjust based on the answers that I'm providing. So now I can say my second language that I'm proficient in. Maybe you know 4 languages. If so, I'm very jealous. And you can add those here. So far, so good? Yeah? Okay, awesome. Let's move this back to 1 language and move on to the next section. Now here, some of these questions are not required, but I answered them anyway. I said that I'm from Panama City. But you'll notice that this next question is required. What is your citizenship status? So pretending that I am potentially one of you, I said that I am a citizen of a non-US country. I added Panama. Do you currently hold a valid US visa? No. Those 3 questions are required. However, the next question about visa applications is not required. Keep in mind that right now we are only applying for admission to the university. This is not a student visa application, and so do not stress about these questions. If you are admitted to a US university, if you are admitted to NYU Abu Dhabi, we are very familiar with the visa application process and are there to support you along with Ms. Gladys to help you through that process. So right now, we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to continue. But if you want to answer this optional question anyway, let's see. Do you intend to apply for a new or different US visa? Yes. What is the visa type? And now you can see there are so many. Like I said, don't stress about this section because you literally can say, I don't know, and we can move on. Not only is attending university expensive, but sometimes even applying to universities can be expensive. For example, I think to apply to NYU, it's around $80 US, and that's just for 1 school. If that would be a financial burden for your family, you actually can apply to NYU Abu Dhabi for free. We will pay for the Common Application, the Css Profile, which is the application for scholarships, and the Duolingo English exam, so that you can apply completely for free. That's why it's important to reach out to admissions committee members like myself, so that we can help to ensure that all students are able to apply regardless of their financial background. And that process begins here with the Common Application Fee Waiver section. So just to read it out, the second part says, do you feel that your financial circumstances might qualify you for an application fee waiver? If not, go ahead and select no and move on. But I said yes, and now we need to prove it. You must meet at least one of the following indicators of economic need to qualify. However, most of these are focused towards students in the United States because these are US government programs, like, for example, the Reduced Price Lunch Program or the Food and Nutrition Service. Those wouldn't apply to us, so you will just select this last one. I can provide a supporting statement from a school official, college access counselor, financial aid officer, or community leader. And then I will type my full formal name as my digital signature. What happens next is magic. The Common Application website is going to actually contact one of your teachers because later you'll see we enter the name and email address of teachers at our school. So with that information, the Common Application will contact them and say, hello teacher, Marcy Herr is applying to NYU and she needs a fee waiver. Can you please verify this? And the teacher will just check the same box. And then I do not need to pay for my application to NYU Abu Dhabi. It's very simple. And so again, please reach out to admissions departments at universities if this is something that would be helpful to you and your family. Got it?
We have
a question, please.
From our live audience. From our online audience. Somebody's asking, so what do you do if you have more than one nationality? So si tienes dos nacionalidades.
So our admissions decisions are not based on nationality. And so do your best to answer that question. If you remember, it was saying, where do you live? Where have you spent most of your life? And so I said 0 years in the United States, 17 years in Panama. And then when you get to the visa section again, this is only an application for admissions to universities, not a visa application. So at this point, we don't need to worry about that. But potentially, if the other nationality is a US citizen, then this process would be slightly easier.
Thank you.
The next and last question on the profile section is for students based in the United States. You can see it's asking us about this U-Strive United States program, and that's not a required question, so I'm just going to leave it blank and continue to the next section. As I mentioned at the beginning, our admissions processes are holistic. We want to know as much about our applicants as we possibly can, including information about your families. So just to move through these questions quickly, yes, my parents are married. I live with both parents. No, I don't have children, but that's not required anyway. For each of your parents, it's going to ask their name. And Bob Herr, my dad, today's his birthday actually. Happy birthday, Daddy. Contact information is not required, so I'll leave that blank. If you do want to add their information, then the university can communicate to your parents about your application status and progress, but I can just tell my parents on my own. Occupation details, are not required, but I just said that my father is employed. What is required is submitting their education level. So let's take a look at the drop-down options. It has everything from no education to graduate school, a parent with a PhD degree or a master's degree. For Bob, he completed some university. He only went to one university, and that university was Penn State University, the same as myself. So I had to add that information here. But he only completed some university, no degree. You'll have to answer the same questions for your mother. But before I move on, I do just want to mention one thing, and that is, when you see this some college/university, in the United States, we use the words college and university to basically mean the same thing. Right now, we're talking about 4-year degree programs. Oftentimes, outside of the United States, college could mean before university, or Colegio Isaac Rabin, for example, we're even talking high school. But when you see college and university on this common application, it's talking about bachelor's degree programs, the next level. I'll skip my mother because the questions are the same. And for my siblings, all 3 of them, the only thing I needed to add is their names. So like I said, pretty straightforward in some of the sections, but the next couple sections are where it gets a bit more complicated. So to start off, I'm going to add the name of my secondary school, the name of my high school. I've already added Colegio Abu Dhabi. But when you do this yourself, if you're unable to find your school, so for example, I don't think that's the name of a school, you will need to add the name of the school
Can we try with one of them?
and the address yourself. Sure.
You wanna try? ¿De qué escuela son ustedes?
Colegio Real? Let's see.
Colegio Real.
There it is. It's already there, so we can just select that one and move on. Again, in the event that your school is not already registered on the Common App, no problem. You will just need to add the name of the school and the address on your own, and we will move on. When did you start at that school? February of 2017. Is this a boarding school? Do you live there? No. Will you graduate from this school? Yes. When will you graduate? May of 2022, coming up soon. The next question is asking, during your time at Colegio Real, was there any change in your timeline? Did you start early or start late? Did you have to stop for a certain amount of time? Or maybe you graduated from high school, but because of the pandemic, you took time off between high school and applying to universities. If not, if you went straight through and you had a normal timeline, then you can continue to the next section. However, for some students, it's common to take time off, to take a gap year. And if that applies to you, we just want to understand why. What did you do during that time? So for example, I said, due to COVID-19, I decided to take a gap year between high school and university, blah, blah, blah. Just to provide us with more explanation and more understanding of your story. If for any reason you attended more than one high school, then we want to know just the other name of that second school. So I added AEP, and the dates that you were there, and why you attended more than one school, again providing us with further explanation. Something as simple as, in my second year of high school, my favorite school. Keep in mind, all of the information that we submit on the Common Application, our grades, our extracurricular involvement, the questions I answered just now, this is only about high school, which would be what grades, Ms. Gladys?
Well, high school here, we call secundaria, is from 7th grade to 12th grade. But we were talking about what we used to call segundo ciclo. What do they call that now? Premedia, media. It will be media.
Okay,
So
perfect.
the last 3-4 years.
So that is what we are talking about for the information that we are submitting through the Common Application. Nothing before then. If you had the opportunity to take courses at the university level during your time in high school before you even get to a university, then we just want to know the name of the university that you attended. Perhaps it was a summer course, for example. The next section is grades, and this is one of those sections that you'll notice the questions in the Common Application are focused towards students from the United States. But again, don't let that stress you out in any way. So question number 1, the approximate size of your graduating class. This is not the number of students in your school, the number of students in your math class. It is the number of students in the final year of school that will finish at the same time as you. I think it's a really good idea to answer the questions in this section with the support of one of your teachers, because they know all of this information very easily. So I said approximately 60 students. Question number 2, class rank reporting. Maybe that sounds confusing to you, and maybe your school doesn't have class rank, and if not, that's okay. What it is this. For example, out of 60 students, when my teacher looked at all of our academic records, we rank the students based on academics, and she could tell me that out of 60, I am number 23. Or perhaps it's decile. She could tell me that I am in the top 20%. Or perhaps your school doesn't do class rank, in which case we will leave that blank. Question number 3, GPA. Raise your hand if you know what GPA stands for.
It's like your final grade of all the classes you have.
Exactly, yeah. It's your final average of all of the classes you've taken, and GPA actually stands for grade point average. In the United States, it is very common that all schools have that. Outside of the United States, not so common. If your school doesn't have it, then we will just say none or leave it blank and move on. But if you do use a GPA system, what is that average out of? What is the perfect score? So oftentimes it's a 4.0. So my teacher could tell me that out of the 4.0, all of my high school grades, my average was a 3.2. Weighted and unweighted means that at my school, for more difficult classes, if I would get an A in the highest level course, that A is actually worth a 5 out of 4. So if I'm really smart, then maybe I had, let's say, a 4.5 out of 5, because some of my classes were weighted higher than others. If this makes no sense at all and your school doesn't have GPA, don't worry, because again, this is not a required question.
So we have a question. So the grade system in Panama, the highest is 5. So do they need to convert it, or does the application?
No. And so if your school does have a GPA system that is out of 5, don't convert it, just say that it is out of 5, and then add whatever your score is here. Yes, please.
I have a question. Is that good point average for the last year of schooling, for the last 2-3 years? How long? Oh.
It depends on your school. So the question was, for the GPA, does that mean the last year of school average or all of school average? Correct? Was that your question?
Yes.
Yeah? The answer to that is that it's all of your high school for that average. And again, work with your teachers on this to ensure that the information you're reporting is accurate. Good, okay. Thank you for those questions. Keep in mind that your school is going to be required to submit your transcript, telling us all of the courses that you have taken as well as your grades. And even though we are receiving that information from them, we will want to have it from you as well. And so in this next section, you're going to need to report the classes that you are taking in your final year of school at the time that you are applying to universities. So let's say, for example, that in my final year, I am taking 5 classes. And at my school, our system is a semester. And then you're going to add the subject and course names for all of those classes, making sure that it is going to match what we see on your high school transcript. So I added those here. And when it says course level, maybe this applies to your school. Perhaps your school has advanced or accelerated or regular level courses, and that's what they call them. Then by all means, we can add that. But if not, or if you are unsure, then it's no problem at all to just say NA, not applicable. We do not have course levels that match to what you can see here on the Common Application. The honors section is asking about any academic honors that you have received during high school, and we're able to add up to 5. Before I show you some examples I have already included in my own application, can you tell me examples of honors, academic honors, that are available at your school?
Physics and Waiver.
Okay. Okay. Other ones? Any other academic honors that are available?
You mean like AP honor classes? Or?
No, I don't mean honors level courses. I mean specific academic honors. So for example, the Dean's List or the Honor Roll.
El cuadro de honor.
Valedictorian.
Si son valedictorian, el primer puesto, segundo puesto.
So anything that is based on academics that is awarded to students either at the school level, national level, international level. So we will add those there, up to 5, but if the answer is 0, that's okay too, and we can move on to the next section.
So Marcy, for example, if they participate in the physics Olympics or the math Olympics, that would be considered an honor because they had to be selected academically?
Absolutely, that would be considered an exciting honor. I would love to see that in your application.
It's the time to ask questions, guys. You have her here live. So if you have any questions.
So the next section, actually, Ms. Gladys, is about you. The next section is called Community-Based Organizations. Indicate the number of community programs or organizations that have provided you with free assistance in your application process. I hope that when you apply to U.S. universities, you are answering one or maybe even more than one when you get to this question because you have used the support that Ms. Gladys is able to offer you from Education USA. So when we're talking about community-based organizations that can provide assistance to you during the application process, most of the examples listed here are US-based. So we're going to go ahead and select Education USA, and you can add Ms. Gladys's name here in this section because she provided you with free support. It's not going to hurt your application to tell us that. And then finally, in the education section, we want to know your future plans. This is not the section where you are declaring your major and selecting which of the academic programs at NYU Abu Dhabi you want. We will do that soon. Right here, it's just in general. At this moment, do you have a sense of what your career interest is and the highest degree that you want to earn? So let's take a look at this list. It really has everything, all sorts here, doctor, nurse, lawyer, farmer, engineer, college teacher. If you don't know yet, that's okay. You can list undecided, and again, that's not going to hurt you, your application. And maybe you want to be a DJ, and you couldn't find that in this list, and so you can add that there. And then the second question in this section is asking, okay, so after you earn your bachelor's degree, your 4-year degree, do you intend to go on for further education? Maybe to earn your law degree, your doctorate degree. Maybe you don't know yet. And then we can move on, please.
I see that in the other career interest, there's like a mark. There's a mark in career interest. Undecided, okay. I thought that we had to like write and just put a mark, but a line, but we put undecided, we don't have another career interest.
You can definitely put undecided here.
But if we only have one, the second option, we can put like we have none.
Oh, I see, I see. If you have a second option, let's say that I want to be a DJ or I want to be a farmer, I suggest that you select only one, the one that is more of an interest to you.
But if we have like none, we can put none or just a line, because I see it has like a mark to continue.
Undecided, meaning none. And then we continue to the next section.
For the second one.
Sorry, I don't think I understand your question.
There's a mark for the other career interest. Can we just like put none for the second one? If I have just one, a career interest.
There's not a second box for career interest, only one.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't think I understand.
En la segunda, cuando pongo, digamos, veterinario en la primera, luego en la segunda donde puso DJ, había como si fuera una segunda opción de interest. Ahí, DJ. No, other, okay. No había visto el other, gracias.
Sí. And so, if we move on to the next section, this is the testing section, keeping in mind that a lot of universities now are test optional. Tests, like I said, aren't required. But again, do your research. Make sure you understand the testing policies of all of the schools that you're applying to, because these can really differ. But in this section, I am going to self-report my scores. Understanding that, for example, if I did take the SAT and I want to submit that to NYU, I can add my scores in this section. However, I still am going to have to pay SAT to send those scores to NYU officially. So I said I took the SAT, and is there a national exam here that is common for students to take in order to graduate from high school?
Is there? Are you taking an exam? At some schools, they do the PSAT, but it's not to graduate. ¿Ustedes están haciendo algún examen estandarizado para graduarse?
No. Okay, then in that case, we will just select no. There is not an exam that as an international student I needed to take in order to complete high school. And then I will move on. And you can see it has added the SAT as the next question because I said that I have already taken it. In this section, maybe you'll take it in the future, maybe you already took it, and we will just share the test dates and scores here. And now you can see why we need official score reports to be sent to NYU, because I said that I scored a perfect score on the SAT, which is not true. And so you can add that information here if you do choose to take the SAT. The next section is activities, which is my favorite section because we really get to understand you more as a student, and this section allows you to really set yourself apart and show us what makes you unique. In the activities section, you're able to add up to 10 different activities. It provides us with some examples of what that might look like. If you are only involved in one thing, that's fine. If you're involved in 10 or more than 10, choose your favorite 10 because we only have space here to add 10, starting with the activity that is the most impressive, the most important to you, and the most impressive. This helps us to keep that information pretty organized because there are a number of different categories that we can add as we explain our involvement in student clubs or family jobs. And so I've completed this with a number of different activities I was involved in. For example, number 1, family responsibilities. I was a cashier at my family's general store. And now, within 150 characters only, I need to describe the impact that I made in that activity. So I said that I worked as the cashier at my family's store, increasing sales annually by 10%. I was involved in that activity all throughout school, all year long, and this is my estimate of weeks per year and hours per week. I will not continue that in college because I will study far from home, I think. The next thing I added is the math club president. I was actually involved in the math club all throughout school. In my final year, I was the club president, but before that, I was the treasurer and a member. So I added all of those positions here. And before I move on, let's look at the rest of my activities in preview mode. Of course, it's going to be very important that we edit our essays and really perfect them when we get to that next section. But proofreading doesn't apply only to essays, but rather all of the information that you are submitting. So when we preview this section, we're able to ensure that everything is easily understandable, everything is in English because I'm applying to US universities, and I think that it looks well organized and very descriptive, or at least as descriptive as I can be with the limited space. One other tip is, for example, if something you're involved in has an acronym like PMMC, keep in mind that most likely NYU Abu Dhabi has no idea that PMMC means Penn Manor Math Club, the math club at Penn Manor High School where I attended. So we want to just make sure we spell that out. Good? Yeah, please.
If I haven't done the SATs, can I just keep that part in the Common App?
Yes, good question. So what happens if at the time of your application with the Common App, you've not taken the SAT yet, but you plan to? I have 2 answers to that. One is when we answer the questions about the SAT, I can let the university know, even though I am applying, let's say for example, in December to NYU, I don't plan to take the SAT until May. In that case, we would need to make an admissions decision without those scores, so it wouldn't make much sense. But maybe I'm applying in November and those scores will come out also in November, but I don't have them right now. So I can just list the test date there. Or you can email the admissions committee and say, just to let you know, I will be sending standardized test scores at a later date. And make sure that you're communicating that to them so that they know scores are on the way. Does that make sense? The final section of the Common Application, again, this being the information that will go to all 5 of the universities we are applying to, is the writing section, the essays. So those 7 questions I showed you at the beginning, we will answer 1 of those here. The instructions are telling us that out of the 5 schools we are applying to, only 3 of those universities actually require the Common Application essay. But by selecting this box, I'm saying, yes, I understand. I still have the opportunity to send this essay to the other 2 universities. I mean, I might as well. I already put the time into writing it, and so it might help my application, even though it's not a requirement for Barry University or Penn State. We are going to talk at length about the essay shortly, but when you are ready to submit the essay that is responding to one of these 7 questions, we will add it in this box. And we'll get back to that again. So for now, let's move on to additional information. Like I said, we want to have as much explanation of your story and your background to understand the full picture of you when we make admissions decisions. And the 2 questions in the additional information section help us to do so. The first one being, how did COVID-19 impact you, your family, your education? Obviously, we all can say it has impacted us, but our answer is going to look different. And the instructions tell us that we're able to share, for example, how the pandemic impacted your health, your safety, your family, your future plans, your education, your access to technology. Anything like that you can add in this space. So for example, I said, standardized test opportunities were limited. Or, all of my life I played basketball, except you'll notice that for 2 years I didn't. The reason for that is because of the pandemic. So it just helps you to add a little bit more explanation to your application. And the second question here is quite similar, but it's not pandemic focused. It's just like, in general, is there anything else that we should know about that we don't already understand about you? Because we've already completed all of the questions we'll need to answer. So for example, you should understand, dear admissions committee, that in the, change that to Panamanian, education system, this is something I think is important for you to understand when you read my application. Or for example, I took the most difficult classes that my school had to offer, but academically I just didn't feel challenged. Or maybe in my second year of high school, I spent 2 months in the hospital and I really struggled to maintain my grades. So as I'm reading your application and I see that, I think, oh, okay, now I understand that dip in the grades. That's not to say that this section is for you to make excuses about anything in your application, but rather for me to really understand your story. Some students completely skip this section because they think we already know everything that we need to, which is totally fine. Other students try to add an essay in this box. This is not the space for that. This is not the overflow of the activities section or an additional essay section. But if really there's anything that you think we should know about your story that you wish to share, you can do so there. And that, my friends, is the end of the Common Application. The only other section you can see is the courses and grades. The 5 universities that we chose to apply to don't require this section, but if a university does require it, you will just need to add all of the classes that you have taken into this section, but luckily we do not need to do that. The information there is the Common App. With the click of a button when we hit apply, all 5 schools will get that same information. So for example, when you write your Common Application essay, if you are applying to more than 1 school like I am, using this Common App, you probably shouldn't say something about how NYU is your dream school, because the other universities will see that too. Before I move on to the Submit Application button, do you have any questions about that section? Please.
Is there any limit of words that we have to write in the right section?
Yes, I will talk about that really soon, but the limit for the Common Application essay is between 250 and 650 words. Any other questions? Okay, so we are just about ready to submit the Common App, but in order to do so, the last thing we have to do is come to the My Colleges section. And in this section, we can complete college-specific questions for each of the 5 universities, invite and manage our recommenders, and finally submit. And now I'll show you what that looks like for NYU so that it makes a bit more sense. We'll start by inviting our recommenders. In this section, I am going to add, for example, the name and email address of my counselor, Mr. Daniel Barra, so that he can submit the required documentation on my behalf. If your school does not have a counselor, that's totally okay, but you will need to have a teacher who will be responsible to submit things like your high school transcript to the university. The great thing about the Common Application is that I can see right here what my teacher needs to submit for me, what he has started, what he has already submitted, so that we are all on the same page and communicating about the requirements for my NYU application. And I didn't even need to do anything. I just added his name and email address like this. And then the Common Application sent an email to him and said, "Hello, Mr. Barra. Marcy Herr, your student, is applying to NYU. At this link, go to the website for the common application, submit her letter of recommendation, and the high school transcript for her. Also, Martha has expressed that she needs an application fee waiver. Can you please verify that information? And he will just need to check that box that I showed you before. And so that's the beauty of the common application. It really brings it all together so that I can easily submit my application to as many universities as I choose to. The next thing we'll need to do in this section is answer questions specific to NYU. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all of these, but questions in this section are things like, which campus are you applying to at NYU? Because we have 3. Are you applying to New York City, Abu Dhabi, or Shanghai? Or maybe all 3 of them. It's up to you. It will ask you which deadline, early decision 1, early decision 2, or regular decision. With the difference being that early decision, you are making a commitment to that school, that they are your dream university, and if they admit you, you will withdraw all other applications and you will accept that offer from them. So even if I have applied to 5 universities in Panama, 2 in Canada, and NYU, but I told NYU it's early decision, then I need to make sure I'm following that rule to withdraw those other applications if NYU admits me. Other questions in this section include things like, do you want to live on campus at NYU New York City? What major are you interested in? At NYU Abu Dhabi, we have 26 academic programs. Which one do you think is the right fit for you? Are you interested in applying for scholarships? So questions like that are specific to NYU are what we will answer in this section. And then you will need to do the same for those 4 other schools as well before finally coming here to submit your common application. Right now, the application window is not open, so I can't, but this is where we would finish. Every August 1st, the common application will open. And then, like I said, universities all have different deadlines. For NYU, our deadlines are November 1, January 1, and January 5. For students who are then beginning classes that following September. So from beginning to end, it's almost a year-long process that actually begins before then, right? It begins now as you're learning about how to do this and where you want to go. So with that, I think we can wrap up the common application section and transition into focusing on the common application essay. But before we do so, are there any other questions, both from the room or online, about the common application website? Yeah, go ahead. In the white.
I'm interested in getting a scholarship with a certain college. Well, I think the app does not really have any questions about scholarships.
Amazing.
So what do I do if I'm interested in getting a scholarship?
Sure. So I think all of us heard that, but the question was, okay, and now I understand how to apply for admissions, but there was not questions about the scholarship. So how do I apply for a scholarship? The answer to that is that it's going to look different for each university. For NYU, for example, some of the questions it's going to ask us are about that. There's only one, and it says, are you using the Css Profile to apply for financial aid? Because for NYU, in order for you to apply for our scholarships, students need to complete what is called the Css Profile form. You can find that easily online. I'll show it to you here. The Css Profile will ask a lot of personal questions like, do both of your parents work? How much money do they make? What do they pay in taxes? Do they have loans, debt, savings? So many very personal questions like that. In order for us to understand the financial need of students. Let's say, for example, I am admitted to NYU Abu Dhabi. I've completed the common application, and I completed what you can see here, the Css Profile form. This is the financial aid application. So if I am admitted to NYU Abu Dhabi, before the university tells me that, they will review the information that I submitted here so that they will understand how much money I would need in a scholarship in order to accept that offer. At NYU Abu Dhabi, our scholarships are very generous, but it's all based on the information you submit here. The microphone? Thank you. I thought it was raining. Many universities, not just NYU, use this Css Profile form. And so you'll find plenty of information online about scholarships for each school, what they provide, how you apply. Is it based on academics? Is it based on financial need? And so something as simple as searching NYU Abu Dhabi financial aid, NYU scholarships, you can learn a lot more. But again, that's going to vary by university, so just make sure you do your research. There was one more question in the back, I think. It was answered. Any other questions before we move on? All right. Are you ready to talk about essays? Yeah, maybe? Okay, so next I want to move back to the PowerPoint presentation. And before we begin this, I want to just show el segundo video about NYU Abu Dhabi, because I don't have much time to talk about it today, but I'll just give you a little bit of a snapshot of what the university has to offer. And then we'll move on to talk about the essay writing process.
For me, I chose NYU Abu Dhabi because it was different, it was unexpected, there was adventure.
NYU Abu Dhabi is incredible.
From the classes to the people to the professors.
Being able to meet so many different people from different backgrounds, getting exposure to different research areas.
And it genuinely feels like everyone cares about you here. It was just amazing.
It's definitely a lot of hard work, but at the same time, it's incredibly rewarding.
We have so many things to choose from, so many different classes with amazing professors.
And I think the liberal arts curriculum helps to create a deep knowledge in one subject, but also a broad understanding in several subjects.
I discovered these fields and areas of interest that I never knew about before.
Most of what we learn here at NYU AD is outside the classrooms. So whether it's research opportunities or even, playing ping pong in the baraha with my friends and talking about their culture and their religion.
People from so many different places with so many different cultures and ideologies come together and debate and discuss and engage in critical dialogue and also fun dialogue sometimes.
At NYU Abu Dhabi, we always have something going on.
There's always soccer matches, there's always artists coming through.
All these beautiful cultures creating all these festivals and events.
What happens on campus is just half of what happens here because there's so much off campus as well.
Go out in the city, explore different restaurants, explore different places.
We'll go kayaking, we'll take trips to other Emirates.
I just got to immerse myself in the culture and the language, everything.
When people from all around the world become your community, you kind of forget sometimes that it really is a unique experience.
I feel like I've seen the world so much more, but also I realize how much more there is to see.
NYU has this big network, and part of the education that we get is about exploration.
Being able to travel to all these different places, you just start to make connections that are holistic and multicultural and multidisciplinary.
University years are the years that you grow the most, and I'm really glad that I'm spending it here.
I think this school has taught me to face your fears,
to learn more, to ask more questions,
to be comfortable with complexity.
It really exceeded my expectations.
Has given me vision for the future.
I'm excited in 5 years' time and 10 years' time to hear what NYU AD students have done to change the world.
So just a little introduction to NYU Abu Dhabi, but now with our remaining time, let's go ahead and jump into the Common Application essay. So already on the website, I showed you those 7 questions just briefly. And I see some of you sitting in your chairs, getting your pens out, and that's awesome because I think this is really the heart of the presentation where you can learn even more. But I'm going to ask for some of your involvement as well when we get to the practice part. Through this section, I'm going to give you a brief introduction to why the essay is important, some strategies that NYU's Writing Center put together for you to learn more, and then we're going to look at essay examples to learn what we think as a group makes a strong essay, or maybe not, and you'll see what I mean shortly. But first of all, this essay is important because it's really your opportunity to show us what makes you unique. All of the information that we just submitted together, pretended to submit together, is more or less the same from student to student, right? We're talking about grades, extracurricular involvement, but here is your chance to set yourself apart. What makes you different? What makes you unique? Especially as international students, it's extremely important that this essay, in terms of spelling and grammar, is perfected. Raise your hand for me if you think it's okay for a teacher, a friend, a parent to edit the essay before you submit it. Can someone else help you to correct errors and edit? Yes? About half of you say yes, the other half kept your hands down. It's kind of a trick question, actually. The answer is yes. We encourage other people to help you edit that essay, whether it's a parent, a friend, a teacher, Ms. Gladys, whoever it may be, to help you perfect your Common App essay. That's really important. Please do that. However, in doing so, don't lose your own voice and writing style. We don't want the essay to seem as if it has come from a grown adult. For example, when I wrote this essay, I asked my father to look at it for me and my English teacher. My English teacher perfected my grammar and fixed my many, many errors. And my father literally used a red pen to try to completely rewrite my essay. So that's why I say it's a trick, because obviously that's really crossing the line, and I could not use his feedback. But my favorite part of the essay is that you really have total control over this aspect of the application. We want your personality, your writing style, your story to come through in this space, within this limited space of 650 words. For example, this year, a student who was admitted to NYU Abu Dhabi from Mexico, his essay was actually a poem. It was incredible, it was creative, it was unique, it was memorable, and it got him admitted to the university. Does that mean you should write a poem too? Maybe if that's your writing style. But this is, again, going to look different for all of us. We suggest that when you start out, you don't get so focused on one idea that that's what the essay needs to be about, but rather you're open-minded. Think about how you could potentially answer all 7 questions. Do a little bit of brainstorming, free write on each of those 7 different common application questions. And as you do so, I think that will help you to narrow it down as to which of the 7 you ultimately should be applying or you should be writing about. I think the most important point of this section is the bolded sentence here. What do you want the reader to learn about you from the essay? Keep in mind that we are reading this essay next to your letters of recommendation, next to your Common App, so we already know a little bit about you. This is your chance to tell us even more, and to make sure that you are using that space wisely. And in your first initial draft, don't worry yet about the word count. That's kind of the last step when you need to narrow it down to those 650 words. On this slide, you can find the instructions for the Common Application essay. You can find these easily online as well. But what I want to highlight from these instructions are, again, that the essay should be between 250 and 650 words, so not really much at all, and that your writing should be clear and concise. This is not the space to tell us your full life story. I wish that would be much more interesting to learn even more about you, but because the space is limited, don't try to squeeze all of that into one essay, but rather just choose a story, choose a single story. So moving on, maybe you want to take a picture of this slide to see our 7 common application prompts for this academic cycle. However, maybe that's me. Keep in mind you can also find these easily online. Just Google Common Application Essay Questions 2021, and these will be there for you. What we're going to do next, keeping an eye on the clock, is go through as many of these 7 as we have time for, so that you have the opportunity to start thinking about what you might want to write. Because like I said, probably next year, when the Common Application opens August 1st, my guess is that these questions won't change. Maybe 1 or 2 will. For example, this past year, question number 4 changed. So here you can see the new number 4 that I really like, actually. But as we go through the prompts together, we're going to be using the old number 4 for practice. This is where I would love some participation from you. What we're going to do as we go through each prompt is actually pretend that we are an admissions committee. So starting with prompt number 1, at the top you can see the essay question bolded, and under that are sample essays. It's obviously not the full 650 words, but rather just the introductory sentence. But already within just that first sentence or 2, we are going to be able to learn a lot about these applicants. So we'll decide whether or not we think that they should be admitted to our pretend university. So could I have someone please volunteer to read for me prompt number 1, beginning with "some students have" and ending with "share your story"? Yeah, please, in the back.
Some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful that they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, then please share your story.
I appreciate that. We have 6 more of these to go, so work up some nerves because I'm going to need 6 more readers, but thank you for being our brave first reader. As we see from this first common application prompt alone, there are already so many ways that we could each answer this first question differently. So maybe take some notes, think about how you might be able to answer this. But let's now go through these examples and review them together. So student number 1 says, we'll pretend they're Panamanian. I am of Panamanian nationality, which means I speak in this unique way, have these unique traditions, and eat these unique foods that I bet you've never heard of. Okay, so just the first sentence. I would love to know, just maybe from one person with the time in mind, do you think this essay is off to a good start? Yes or no? I see some heads shaking no. Why not? Why don't you like this essay so far? What do you think? Yeah, please, in the back. You, the glasses, yeah.
I'm not sure how good it would be because it doesn't really set the person apart. Anybody from that same nationality would be able to write something similar or even better.
Or even better. 100%. I don't need to say more. I completely agree. Thank you for that. We can find that information on Google. Of course you can write about your Panamanian heritage, but if you choose to do so, make sure you're being more specific, maybe to your own family and your own specific traditions. It should be something that not only no one in this room can write, but no one in your school, no one in your country. We want it to be that specific. Number 2, I want to study business. I excel in these classes and I won these awards. Raise your hand if you like this essay so far. No one. Why not? For everyone who kept their hand down. Yeah, please.
I feel it is just way too straight to the point. It doesn't really elaborate on anything. It's just, I have these. Like, it's a supermarket list. There's no like spice. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
I do. I understand completely. Thank you for sharing that. I know it's only one sentence, but I have so many issues already with this one sentence. Exactly like you said, it's kind of like, it's not that exciting. I'm not hooked by the writing style itself. But in addition to that, first of all, this is already information that we know from the Common Application, right? We know what they want to study, we know what classes they excelled in, and maybe not, and we know the awards that they won. You'll find that maybe there are places that there can be overlap between your Common Application and your essay. Let's say, for example, that basketball is my greatest passion in life, so much so that I just need to write my essay about basketball. I'll make sure that it's a unique story about my involvement with basketball, and I understand that the admissions committee already knows that I've played basketball my whole life, but I just have to write about it, and that's okay. But if there is overlap, make sure that you are really, again, using your word count wisely. I also think, at least in my opinion, this essay comes across so far as a little bit arrogant. I don't know about you, but the tone of the writing is a little bit show-offy. That being said, this is your time to shine, and we want you to show off. We want to know what makes you proud about yourself in this space. However, when people edit the essay for you, that's a good time to ask them, is my tone of writing okay? Does it come across as arrogant or negative in any way? To have people make sure that you really are showing yourself off in the best light. And then moving on to our third and final on prompt number 1. I don't just listen to music, I'm an avid musicologist. Let me tell you about the opera of my life, and in particular the last chapter, my jazz stage. Raise your hand if you like this one. Yeah, everyone's hands go up. My feedback for number 3 is that probably all of us in this room just an assumption, but all of us maybe like music. That's not a unique interest. Do you think this essay is unique? Yeah, I think so too. I think their writing style is beautiful. I'm captivated. I want to read more. They took something quite common and they are in the process of making it a very unique essay. With that in mind, I want to emphasize that there really are not rules to the essay. The rules are this: choose one prompt and respond to the entire thing, because as you'll notice, some of them have multiple questions within the prompt. And the second rule is it needs to be between 250 and 650 words. But aside from that, this is your space to use as you please. And so as we go through this and I'm saying suggestions, don't take those as hard rules, because they are not. Moving on to the second one, can I have a volunteer to read this prompt for us? Anyone? Yeah, please, thank you.
The lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience?
Excellent, thank you so much. Student number 1 says, I failed grade 11 math because I had a teacher who didn't know how to teach well. I want to study engineering and know I'll do better with a good teacher. Raise your hand for me if you want this student to attend our university. Yeah, no way. Why not? You can shout it out. Yeah, please.
I just feel it kind of makes like an excuse for their knowledge.
100%. Yes, thank you. This prompt number 2, is allowing us to tell a narrative story. So if that's your type of writing style, you like storytelling, you want to tell us something about your past, this is setting you up to easily talk about a failure, how you grew from that, how it changed you. And instead of talking about personal growth and how they are now better prepared for their future and for university, they didn't take accountability and they blamed their teacher, showing us a bit of immaturity and probably not someone we want to admit to our university. Thank you for that, I agree. Student number 2 says, as I started my final lap in the pool, the entire crowd was cheering, including every other swimmer, all of whom had finished long before me and were grabbing their towels. If I set any records that day, it only could have been for the slowest time. But without my participation, my school could not have even qualified. A little bit of advice. If you choose to write a story about athletics for your essay, it should be, again, something that's unique, not something that is a sports cliche. Do you think that this essay is unique? Yeah?
I do because of the way he tells it, like he was the slowest. Normally a cliche would be like I was the best and everything. I think it's very specific because it kind of says his own experience about the sport he was competing in.
Yep, I agree. He lost the race and still chose to share that with us. Not only to me is this a unique example of writing about an athletic experience, but additionally I'm learning that this student is potentially, at least to me he seems or she seems to be humble, because they're talking about their loss. How embarrassing. Resilient, a team player. And so think about, as you're writing, what we learn from this essay about you. Thanks, perfect. Number 3, who's our reader as we move through these quickly? I'm going to read it for us. Number 3, reflect on a time when you challenged a belief or idea. What prompted your thinking? What was the outcome? So remember how I said this last one was a bit more of a narrative question? I'm encouraged to tell a story about my past. Number 3 is very different. This is prompting a different writing style. And so really make sure that regardless of which of the 7 you choose, it doesn't matter which one you choose, you're finding one that's the right fit for the story that you want to write about yourself. I'm going to read both of these essay responses together so that we can compare them because they are about similar ideas, and you will notice which one is stronger. In my culture, a man aims for a good career and a woman should aim for a happy family. I don't think this is fair. Okay? And number 2, growing up, no one even spoke to me about engineering. It didn't seem like an option for a girl. By 10th grade, I had subscribed to 2 magazines, 5 YouTube channels, and my top Google results were how do you make, and how to take apart. By 11th grade, I held our school's first Made by Girls meeting and had 20 elementary school girls bringing clocks to deconstruct. This year, our first meeting had 60 girls. Show me fingers. Do you like number 1 or number 2 better? Yes, I also prefer number 2. What stands out to you when you compare these two responses? Yes, please.
Well, when I read number 1, I think that might be an interesting essay if they have something good to say, but it doesn't hook me yet. But the second one, it starts off strong and already tells me that I should pay attention to what they have to say.
Absolutely, yeah. I think hopefully student number 1 brings this essay to be more unique to their own experience. Definitely I agree with them so far, and I hope that it becomes a better essay. However, starting off, it's just kind of a general idea. It's not super unique to that student and their experiences, especially when we compare it to number 2, which is about a similar idea, and how that specific student made a difference and made change against an idea that they didn't think was right. That being said, the student number 2, you'll notice, mentions their interest in engineering. We also saw already an essay about business. If you don't know what you want to major in yet, or you don't want to include that within your common application essay, that's okay. This does not need to be, obviously, about just academics. However, if you are so passionate, for example, about engineering and want to incorporate that into your essay, of course you are able to do so.
Can I choose any of the prompts, or will the university give the prompt?
Oh, awesome. So there are 7 essay prompts. I don't think we'll have time to look at all 7 together today, but when it comes time for you to submit this essay, you are able to choose whichever of the 7 you want to choose. Moving on to the next one. Describe a problem you've solved or a problem you'd like to solve. It can be an intellectual challenge, a research query, an ethical dilemma, anything that is of personal importance no matter the scale. Explain its significance to you and what steps you took or could be taken to identify a solution. In the interest of time, let's just look at the first response. But before we do so, I want to just kind of take a second glance at this prompt. There are so many parts to it. And so again, regardless of which of the 7 questions you choose, make sure you're responding to every aspect of it. For this one especially, you don't necessarily need to have already solved the problem. Maybe you just have a big idea that you want to implement in the future. But as you can see here, it says steps you took or could be taken. So there's a lot of potential ways that we could answer prompt number 4. Student number 1 says, poverty is the world's #1 problem. I would try to fix this problem by eliminating greed and creating equality. What do you think about that? Yeah, please.
I think it sounds sort of general. It doesn't really answer how you're going to solve the problem. It says like you would try to do something of the sort, but how? Also, why do you think that is the world's #1 problem? It's not elaborating on any of the parts of what has been said.
100%, thank you. I couldn't agree more. We call a response like that kind of like a beauty pageant answer. It's very surface level. I think we all could agree with that student, but we need them to take it deeper and tell us how it's impacting them personally, why they think it's a problem, and how they're going to make a change. Moving on, let's take a look at number 5. Discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others. Student number 1. My mother left when I was 12. That was the year I mastered cooking an omelet, turning my little brother's tears into giggles, and most importantly, learning what was my fault and what was not. Super heavy. Raise your hand if you think that this essay is off to a good start. Interestingly, only about half of the room's hands went up. And that's okay, because I'm asking you for your opinion. There's not a right or wrong answer to this essay. When you are writing your common application essay, allow yourself to be creative and don't get stuck on trying to figure out what we want to hear. It's literally your space to tell your story. This student chose to tell a sad story, but the way that they did so, I admire so much. This is one of my favorite essays from all of those that we are looking at together. And the reason for that is because they wrote about something difficult, but they only mentioned the problem within the first 7 words. And not only was that super punchy and captivating right at the beginning, such a strong hook, but at the same time, that left them with the rest of their 650 words to talk about their personal growth. And for me, when I read only 2 sentences, my takeaway is that this student is self-aware, independent, mature, responsible, among other things. Something else I love about this essay is how specific it is. For example, they did not say, that was the year I became independent. They said, that was the year I mastered cooking an omelet. I really love the writing style. And my last point on this essay is that, remember how I said that for some of the stories you might choose to write, you could actually respond to some different prompts with the same story? What I mean by that is this. Probably this student could have easily responded to prompt number 2 instead, talking about a setback. That's a huge setback in life. But instead of doing that, they talked about their story in response to talking about personal growth. And so I think that it sets their essay up to have a much more positive tone, a tone of personal growth, rather than setback and failure. Any questions so far? I know we only have about 10 minutes left. Questions or comments?
For those online, you can also ask questions or comments.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so there are just 2 left. So I'll move on to the next one. But again, if you do have any questions, we of course can get to that. Number 6 says, describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging that it makes you lose all track of time. Why does it captivate you? What or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? Reading these 2, for us, student number 1 says, I love to write. When I need to take my mind off things, I use a pen and paper and get all my feelings down on that piece of paper. Once I start writing, I lose all track of time and sometimes don't know when to stop. Raise your hand if you like essay number 1. Some yes, some no. Does anyone have feedback they want to share with us about this one? Yeah, please.
Well, I think they are answering to straight to the point. The answer that he is just answering what has been asked, and the person would need to go deeper in it. So he just saying that he loves to write, that he used a pen and paper and get all the feelings down in that paper, but he's not like giving the reasons, like why he does it and how he feels when he writes, and yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. You guys are really good at this. Ironically, I don't think this student is that great of a writer. It's not super interesting yet. It's almost like repeating back the prompt. And so hopefully as they continue to write and get all of their thoughts down on paper, it becomes a bit more unique and interesting to us. Comparing that to number 2, and let's wrap up here. This student says, and I'm only going to read half of it, the hours pass, day turns to night, and only my mother calling me down to dinner breaks the spell I am under. Without realizing it, I had spent yet another afternoon with my needle and thread. And they continue on to talk about embroidery. Response number 2, I wanted to read just quickly because for me, embroidery is not that thrilling, personally, of a topic, but this writing to me is so captivating. I want to keep reading it. I see some heads shaking. I want to know more about why this student is passionate about that, where they learned about it. And I want more information. And I say that because I think it's important to understand this essay, again, can literally be about anything, and that can make a good essay. From traumatic life events, what else have we seen? Academic interests, student involvement like the engineering club, embroidery. And so it really has a lot of potential within this essay space. And to conclude, prompt number 7 allows us to literally write about anything. Share an essay on any topic of your choice. It can be one you've already written, one that responds to a different prompt, or one of your own design. And so when we end on that one, you now understand that even though those other prompts have asked a lot of interesting questions that could lead to even more interesting life stories from you, you literally can write about anything in these 650 words. And so my takeaways, my tips are, don't procrastinate this process. It takes time to figure out and to really brainstorm which life story you want to tell. My second tip is, if you write a story from your past, connect it somehow to your future. Bring it full circle for us. Show us how that event, whether it was positive or negative, impacted your life. And finally, I would say just make sure you edit. We should not be distracted by errors in your essay, but should really be able to focus on your story and what you chose to share with us. And so just make sure again that that story is unique to you and you only, and no one else in Panama. And with that, my friends here and online, I think we can conclude and save our last minute or so for any questions that you might have. Yeah, please.
Thank you. I have two questions which are not really related. The first one is that would we be able to look at, say, example essays for these prompts to learn a little bit more about what we can do, what we could try, what kind of ideas we like? And the second question is just, will we be able to have a recording of this session for later on for reference?
Ms. Gladys, what is the answer to question number 2?
The answer is yes. You will have access to this recording. Do you want to answer number 1?
Do you want to? I can either way. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I would say in response to question number 1, will we have access to sample essays? There are so many free resources for you online. Just Google Common Application Essay Examples on Google, search on YouTube, and there are a lot of resources that can show you not only examples, but suggestions like what you saw today. And I say that with a caveat that cautions you to not get overwhelmed by all of the advice that's out there. Help it to give you ideas and inspire you, but then when it comes to the writing process, just think about you and your own story and not those other examples that you saw. Don't compare yourself to those.
One thing I do want to add is that for some of you that were arriving during my presentation, it's important for you to understand that Education USA has free resources available right now for you to practice essay writing. And all the information is on our Instagram, Education USA PTY, and there's a link, and it's on Zoom. So you can take you can tell your colleagues, for the students that are watching from the interior of the country, it's online and it's free. So make sure, again, we have free resources for essay writing. Our fellows even help you edit the essays. I'm happy to read the essays. And it's very important, as I love, Marcy, what you said about bringing the past to the present and to the future, because every story is unique. What's your name? Jose? Jose Gabriel. Jose Gabriel, tu historia es tu historia, Jose Gabriel. Nadie más puede contar tu historia. ¿Cuál es tu nombre? Alejandro. Caleb. Tu historia es tu historia. ¿De dónde eres, Caleb? ¿De qué provincia?
Soy colombiano.
Ah, ok.
Pero vivo en Panamá hace mucho tiempo, en Panamá, en la provincia de Panamá.
Ok, eres panameño. Entonces, por ejemplo, la historia de Caleb es la historia de muchas personas en Panamá. Personas que a lo mejor sus padres fueron extranjeros o tienen una historia. Entonces, cuenten esa historia. Y la historia de Caleb no va a ser la misma que la de José Gabriel. Y no va a ser la misma que de sus profesores, ni la mía, ni la de Marcy. Pero cuando ustedes hacen la aplicación, ahí las notas es algo que son lo que son. Por eso es que ahora tienen que trabajar para mantener eso, porque sí lo ven. Pero el ensayo es la única parte cualitativa que los evaluadores ya de becas, porque van a aplicar a muchas becas, pero los evaluadores de universidades pueden ver para ver quién es Caleb y quién es José Gabriel y quién es Sara. ¿Ven? Cada historia es diferente. Y si sus padres ahora con la pandemia perdieron el trabajo, entonces cuenten eso, cuenten las cosas y cómo sobrepasaron. Yo tuve que encargarme de mi hermano y me pasó esto. Y cada historia, ellos no lo ven negativa, quiere decir que es su historia, ¿right? Y el hecho de que ustedes estén aquí un jueves en la tarde y conectados los 60 personas que están conectadas ahorita mismo por Zoom, quiere decir que ustedes jóvenes sí quieren mejorar y sí quieren estudiar. Entonces aprovechen los recursos que tenemos disponibles para ustedes para que puedan lograr sus sueños. Y nunca, nunca prométanme, José Gabriel, prométame Caleb, prométame Sara y todos los que están aquí, que no van a permitir que nadie les diga que no pueden. ¿Entienden? Porque ya están aquí. Y estoy fascinada con el grupo porque todos manejan muy bien el inglés. Siempre podemos mejorar y por eso tenemos recursos para que mejoren sus ensayos, para que mejoren su aplicación. Porque yo quisiera ver a más jóvenes panameños, jóvenes que estudian en Panamá, representando a nuestro país afuera de Panamá, trayendo conocimiento, inventando cosas, no importa en qué quieran estudiar, pero todo ese talento que tienen, pónganlo en buen uso. Entonces ahora aprovechen los recursos que tenemos en Education USA. Nosotros posteamos en las redes también cuando hay oportunidades de pasantías, cuando hay oportunidades de voluntariado. Todo eso ellos quieren saber. ¿Qué hicieron en la pandemia? Ellos no quieren saber que se quedaron enfrente de la pantalla jugando videojuegos 2 años. ¿Qué hicieron? ¿Cómo ayudaron al vecino? ¿Cómo ayudaron? Todo eso es importante. Entonces es importante que vayan pensando, ahorita mismo vayan escribiendo lo que quieren poner. Lo escriben ustedes porque como Marcy dijo, tiene que ser su voz. It's your voice. It's not somebody else's voice. Because the evaluators, los que evalúan, pueden distinguir este es la persona o esto no. Y un consejo que les puedo dar, que quiero que lo mantengan siempre. No plagien, no copien. No hagan copy-paste de Google. No, porque saben que yo soy evaluadora de becas muchos años atrás y todavía lo hago. Y aquí está Sara atrás, que no me va a dejar mentir, ella trabaja en la embajada y maneja todas las becas Fulbright. Nunca mientan, porque luego cuando tienen la entrevista, entonces ustedes dijeron en el papel que hablaban francés, chino, ¿verdad? Y el evaluador te hace una pregunta y enseguida, y eso es para el resto de su vida, para los trabajos que apliquen, siempre sean honestos. Y si tienen una historia, vean cómo la escriben y cómo la hacen real, para que puedan transmitir eso y el evaluador o la persona que lee los ensayos, porque sí los leemos. You read essays when you are evaluating, that's people, you read them. Entonces, tómense su tiempo, aprovechen los recursos y como les dije, hoy tenemos la primera visita y la verdad es que les agradezco porque es la primera vez después de 2 años que hacemos un evento semipresencial y queremos seguir haciendo esto. En el futuro va a ser en nuestro American Center. Así que les damos la bienvenida a los estudiantes que están quedándose acá en Ciudad de Saber. Les quiero hablar al resto del grupo, así que vamos a tener otra sesión. I'm just telling them about the resources that we have at Education USA and that we're going to have a center opening soon. So we look forward to seeing you here. Síganos en las redes, conéctense a los programas, vamos a tener más oportunidades para ustedes. Así que díganles a sus compañeros porque queremos que más personas. Ustedes no están compitiendo entre ustedes se tienen que ayudar. Estamos compitiendo a lo mejor entre personas que están en otros continentes, otras latitudes, pero queremos apoyarlos en ese proceso lo más que podemos. Así que muchísimas gracias. Thank you, Marcy, for your time,
Thanks
for
so much,
traveling
everyone.
all the way here. And Marcy's going to be available to answer some questions if you have any other questions. And I'll also be available here. Make sure you grab a bag. And muchas gracias a todos. Gracias a los que nos acompañaron.
Yes.
Gracias por todos los que nos acompañaron. Están en las redes. Si tienen cualquier pregunta adicional, sí vamos a enviarles esta grabación. Así que estamos a la orden.
Thank you, everyone. I will be sure to send you a follow-up email with more resources to stay in touch with me, to ask any questions in the future, and most importantly, to a webinar channel where you can join my colleagues and I in Mexico City every single week for sessions like this one or other sections about NYU Abu Dhabi specifically. And so we always welcome you to join us for those. And again, thank you for being here. I'm so proud of you for taking this step and taking advantage of these resources that we are here to offer you. So thank you again. And bye everyone online too.